Welcome back to our reading group series, Reading and Discussing Blackshirts and Reds by Michael Parenti. This time we will be continuing Chapter 1, Rational Fascism, with the fifth section of this chapter, The Rational Use of Irrational Ideology, followed by our group discussion. Then, because this was the final section we covered in the first session of our reading group, this chapter's discussion will be followed by a brief wrap-up discussion of everything we read that day. As always, I need to give the disclaimer that because our reading groups are open to the public and we encourage discussion of any ideas people bring to the table, this means some of the ideas expressed in our discussion may not reflect the actual views of our party on any level. We encourage everyone watching to think critically of any ideas expressed throughout the video. If you have a disagreement with anything that's said in our discussions, and no one participating in the discussion brings it up to discuss as a group, please feel free to let us know in the comments so we can address it. Critically examining things is always the best way for all of us to learn and better understand the world, each other, and even ourselves. Now I'll hand it off to Daniel to kick things off.
Okay, I don't know how many more sections we have, so let's try to get through at least this one, and then we'll see where we're at time-wise. Anyone opposed to me reading this one? Okay. Patriarchy and Pseudo-Revolution. Fascism's national chauvinism, racism, sexism, and patriarchal values also served a conservative class interest. Fascist doctrine, especially the Nazi variety, makes an explicit commitment to racial supremacy. Human attributes, including class status, are said to be inherited through blood. One's position in the social structure is taken as a measure of one's innate nature. Genetics and biology are marshaled to justify the existing class structure, not unlike what academic racists today are doing with their bell curve theories and warmed-over eugenics claptrap. Along with race and class inequality, fascism supports homophobia and sexual inequality. Among Nazis' earliest victims were a group of Nazi homosexuals, leaders of the SA stormtroopers. When complaints about the openly homosexual behavior of SA leader Ernst Röhm and some of his brown-shirted stormtroopers continued to reach Hitler after he seized power, he issued an official statement contending that the issue belonged, quote, purely to the private domain, and that an SA officer's, quote, private life cannot be an object of scrutiny unless it conflicts with basic principles of nationalist socialist ideology. The paramilitary SA had been used to win the battles of the streets against trade unionists and Reds. The stormtroopers acted as a pseudo-revolutionary force that appealed to mass grievances with a rhetorical condemnation of finance capital. When SA membership skyrocketed to 3 million in 1933, this was too discomforting to the industrial barons and military patricians. SA street brawlers who denounced bourgeois decadence and called for sharing the wealth and completing the Nazi revolution would have to be dealt with. Having used the SA to take state power, Hitler then used the state to neutralize the SA. Now, suddenly Röhm's homosexuality did conflict with nationalist socialist ideology. In truth, the SA had to be decapitated not because its leaders were homosexual, though that was the reason given, but because it threatened to turn into a serious problem. Röhm and about 300 other SA members were executed, not all of whom were gay. Among the victims was veteran Nazi propagandist Gregor Strasser, who was suspected of leftist leanings. Of course, many Nazis were virulently homophobic. One of the most powerful of all, SS leader Heinrich Himmler, saw homosexuals as a threat to German manhood and the moral fiber of Teutonic peoples, for a homosexual sissy would not procreate or make a good soldier. Himmler's homophobia and sexism came together when he announced, quote, if a man just looks at a girl in America, he can be forced to marry her or pay damages. I'm sorry, that caught me off guard. Therefore, men protect themselves in the USA by turning to homosexuals. I'm sorry.
That's great logic.
I'm sorry that it's been a minute since I read that and just the absurdity of that statement. I'm so sorry.
It's totally true. I've seen it happen.
Women in the USA are like, I'm sorry. I can't believe I'm struggling to get through this. This is so insane.
This is like Andrew Tate shit.
I was just gonna say, or like I saw this clip of Adam Carolla earlier today, just going off about women and their response of like worrying about COVID. And I was like, whoa, this guy is unhinged. Anyway, sorry. Women in the USA are like battle axes. They hack away at males, end quote. And that is quoted from Richard Plant, The Peak Triangle, page 91. Thus spoke one of the great
Also
minds
the
of
first
Nazism.
incel.
Yes. Thus spoke one of the great minds of Nazism. In time, Himmler succeeded in extending the oppression of gays beyond the SA leadership. Thousands of gay civilians perished in SS concentration camps. In societies throughout the ages, if able to find the opportunity, women have attempted to limit the number of children they bear. This poses a potential problem for a fascist patriarchy that needs vast numbers of soldiers and armament workers. Women are less able to assert their procreative rights if kept subservient and dependent. So fascist ideology extolled patriarchal authority. Every man must be a husband, a father, and a soldier, Il Duce said. Woman's greatest calling was to cultivate her domestic virtues, devotedly tending to the needs of her family while bearing as many offspring for the state as she could. Patriarchal ideology was linked to a conservative class ideology that saw all forms of social equality as a threat to hierarchical control and privilege. The patriarchy buttressed the plutocracy. If women get out of line, what will happen to the family? And if the family goes, the entire social structure is threatened. What then will happen to the state and to the dominant class's authority, privileges, and wealth? The fascists were big on what today is called family values, though most of the top Nazi leaders could hardly be described as devoted family men. In Nazi Germany, racism and anti-Semitism served to misdirect legitimate grievances toward convenient scapegoats. Anti-Semitic propaganda was cleverly tailored to appeal to different audiences. Super patriots were told that the Jew was an alien internationalist. Unemployed workers were told that their nemesis was the Jewish capitalist and Jewish banker. For debtor farmers, it was the Jewish usurer. For the middle class, it was the Jewish union leader and Jewish communists. Here again, we have a consciously rational use of irrational images. The Nazis might have been crazy, but they were not stupid. What distinguishes fascism from ordinary right-wing patriarchal autocracies is the way it attempts to cultivate a revolutionary aura. Fascism offers a beguiling mix of revolutionary-sounding mass appeals and reactionary class politics. The Nazi Party's full name was the National Socialist German Workers' Party, a left-sounding name. As already noted, the SA stormtroopers had a militant share the wealth strain in their ranks that was suppressed by Hitler after he took state power. Both the Italian fascists and the Nazis made a conscious effort to steal the left's thunder. There were mass mobilizations, youth organizations, work brigades, rallies, parades, banners, symbols, and slogans. There was much talk about a Nazi revolution that would revitalize society, sweeping away the old order and building the new. For this reason, mainstream writers feel free to treat fascism and communism as totalitarian twins. It is a case of reducing essence to form. The similarity in form is taken as reason enough to blur the vast difference in actual class content. Writers like A. James Gregor and William Eibenstein, countless Western political leaders, and others who supposedly are on the democratic left, regularly lump fascism with communism. Thus, Noam Chomsky claims, quote, the rise of corporations was in fact a manifestation of the same phenomena that led to fascism and Bolshevism, which sprang out of the same totalitarian soil, end quote. And that's footnote 12. Chomsky interviewed by Hussein al-Kurdi, Perception, March-April 1996. But in the Italy and Germany of that day, most workers and peasants made a firm distinction between fascism and communism, as did industrialists and bankers who supported fascism out of fear and hatred of communism, a judgment based largely on class realities. Years ago, I used to say that fascism never succeeded in solving the irrational contradictions of capitalism. Today, I am of the opinion that it did accomplish that goal, but only for the capitalists, not for the populists. Fascism never intended to offer a social solution that would serve the general populace. only a reactionary one, forcing all the burdens and losses onto the working public. Divested of its ideological and organizational paraphernalia, fascism is nothing more than a final solution to the class struggle, the totalistic submergence and exploitation of democratic forces for the benefit and profit of higher financial circles. Fascism is a false revolution. It cultivates the appearance of popular politics and a revolutionary aura without offering a genuine revolutionary class content. It propagates a new order while serving the same old moneyed interests. Its leaders are not guilty of confusion, but of deception. That they work hard to mislead the public does not mean they themselves are misled. Okay, question. Parenti describes how fascist ideology is a false revolution. It both masks the class nature of society and offers not new solutions, but old patriarchal solutions, rooted in women's oppression and denial of LGBTQ individuals as threats to the family and society. How can communists combat this through both messaging and action?
We need to somehow get people to recognize that an attack on one section of the working class is an attack on all of us. I mean, we could possibly use that as a slogan or something, but we also need to figure out other ways to demonstrate that and convince the masses of that. And that's something that we're going to need to really look into and figure out. I mean, we can also just point out the contradictions in the ideas that oppressing women or queer people or racial minorities will help people at all. And that the people's problems come, in fact, from the bourgeoisie and not from any of these marginalized groups.
For that slogan, how do you like an injury to one is an injury to all?
What a novel idea. I've never
Wow.
heard that before.
You guys both know that one?
Yeah.
You know
Yes.
where it's from?
Not off the top of my head, no.
That didn't originate from the IWW, did it?
From where?
IWW.
It did. It's their official slogan.
Oh, well, there you go.
Very good. Although I know you have a checkered past.
I knew it was from the IWW. I just didn't even know if it like originated from there.
To be fair, somebody might have said it beforehand and they were like, that's a cool slogan, let's use it. But
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, I think the necessity of pointing out and explaining the whole an injury to one is an injury to all, that their tactic is to divide and conquer and all that stuff in order to build solidarity. I think that's definitely good. I think, and this is me a little spitballing here, so I don't know, let me know what you all think about this. I think that at least culturally, we're in a better position than, say, 100 years ago when it comes to specifically women's oppression and LGBTQ issues. You know, LGBTQ equality and issues are, a lot of people care about them very deeply. And there is at least a sense that there's an attack on these things and that they need to be defended. And I think the same, and I say this acknowledging that I am a man, cisgendered man, but it feels like also with women's oppression that there's also, you know, the whole like, oh, we won't go back, and everyone's super pissed off about the overturn of Roe v. Wade in the United States and all this other stuff. So even if we're losing those battles right now, or at least some of the battles, it feels to me like on a cultural level, we're not starting from where maybe people were in the 1920s when they had to like beg and plead to get people to see like, hey, this is really important. Like, these are also people, you know, gay men, lesbian women, trans people, women in general, all this kind of stuff. So it's not as bad as it was 100 years ago, and we can. I think the challenge then specifically for us is not to so much raise awareness, but to continually point to the root of the cause of all of this, which is class oppression, and specifically as it manifests under capitalism.
Yeah. I mean, pointing that out is definitely like the main thing to do, but there is definitely I mean, it's not big, but there's definitely like even a section of people who claim to be on the left that are like saying that advocating and fighting against these fascist attacks and focusing on them instead of only entirely dedicating ourselves to the orthodox class struggle is divisive somehow, even though them claiming that is what is actually divisive in the first place.
Ooh, class reductionist argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a stupid argument because it's like, okay, you want these people to fight by your side, you got to fight by theirs.
Not to mention,
It's just the right thing.
yeah, not to mention, in a colonial country like the United States, I mean, white people in the first place aren't going to be our main source of support. So,
On behalf of white cis straight men everywhere, I'm sorry. I was listening to a podcast earlier today while I was driving around, and he was talking about having a conversation at Thanksgiving with a particularly conservative extended family member. And he was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just not going to engage. And then he started going on a rant about trans people. And that was when he was just like, okay, I have to say something here. And he's like a straight guy, married as a kid, white guy. And he described how he engaged with his relative by just like mocking him and just saying like, who cares? You know, oh, trans people are coming for this and trans people are doing this and trans people exist. And he was just like, who cares? Like, why do you care about this? You know, and the guy was like, oh, because it's 0.5% of the population or something. And the guy's like, yeah, exactly. So why do you give a fuck? Which just, you know, I think having the complex ideological discussions and all that kind of stuff is important in order to build the class consciousness and everything. But sometimes I wonder if the most beneficial way to respond in the moment to this kind of stuff is just like directly mocking and getting to the point of it, of just like, yeah, you're lying, you're spreading bullshit, you're trying to sow division, et cetera, et cetera. Like you can figure out all the details once you're having a meeting like this, where it's like, well, here, let's work on the theory and figure out a game plan. But if you're like publicly engaging with someone like that, especially in the internet age, just keeping it like simple, but also, you know,
it probably depends on your relationship with whoever you're talking to.
yeah, and
A lot of the context matters, I think.
yes,
Yeah.
and I should say, I am not suggesting that you put yourself in a dangerous situation, like to have this conversation. Absolutely not. But like we've seen those, you know, dumb Jubilee videos where it's like, oh, that guy clapped back and blah blah blah. Like trying to create some sort of like simple yet viral moment for our side to like get people to realize like, yeah, this doesn't matter. Yes, this is divisive, and it's bullshit and it's bunk.
I gotta
So
give Biden props. I gotta give my boy props. You remember when he was first running and somebody asked him how many genders there were as he was walking through the crowd? You remember what he said?
At least 3.
Yeah, he said, I don't know, at least 3. That was the best thing he's ever said.
Yeah, that was
Uh-huh.
great. No joke.
yeah.
Yeah.
99.9% of the time I'll hate on him, but I'll give him that.
Mhm. To bring things back to our last reading group, I think when we are talking to people, we need to remember to maintain unity, criticism, unity. So, like in the case of that you were talking about with that podcast, where the person kind of just
Went off on him.
yeah, and kind of just like made fun of the idea that trans people could do anything. I mean, that works because I mean, there's that familial relationship there that's like there's already a source of unity there, and that could be the case depending on whatever your relationship with the people are. But you need that unity, desire for unity in the first place for people to even listen to you, and like to begin with. And then the criticism itself can be whatever would work best for the person in the given circumstance. Like if it is your uncle who you have that kind of relationship with, sure, like tease him. Like it's not going to be seen as a personal attack or anything. It should always be with the method of curing the sickness to save the patient. Making fun of the idea, not like making fun of the person, not trying to like personally attack the person. And you also need to make sure that like, is this a situation where I can be kind of making fun of it, or should I like be more courteous and like sensitive to make sure that this person doesn't feel like they're being attacked? And then you need to make sure like touch base afterwards and be like, you get what I mean, you know? And like that can happen like a bit down the road if the person needs some processing that they need to do, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always better to try to employ unity, criticism, unity. If you're publicly engaging with a bigot, though, I'm trying to think how to say this. Like,
I mean,
like
you can't engage that person to convince them. Like, you'd have to engage that person to convince other people. So in that case,
yeah, and you know, like if you see some fascist like giving an interview on fascist YouTube or something like that on the street,
mm-hmm.
like, yeah, man, go up in there and just like interrupt the whole thing and shut down the whole production. Like, don't walk up to them and say, well, actually, you know, there are class antagonisms and blah, blah, blah. Like,
absolutely.
That's not the point. Like, if you have some like, you know, racist or bigoted uncle that's at a dinner table who's just going off and like, you know, there's someone in the family who is gay or trans or married to someone of a different race or something like that. It's like, yeah, you need to shut that shit down first. You know, you can, and later on you can circle back around and like check in with the people who might have been hurt by that. You know, maybe partner up with someone to be good cop, bad cop. I'm going to get in their face while they're saying stupid shit. But how about tomorrow morning you checking in with them and try to like, you know, mend the fences and like there are different ways to do it. But what struck me is that there is, at least in America today, there seems to be a lack of uncivil discourse. Like, these fascist fuckers are out for blood. Like, when we're directly engaging with them in the public arena, I don't know how courteous and systematic we need to be with them. And in personal settings and group settings of trying to like build class solidarity, absolutely. Unity, criticism, unity all day, every day. But
yeah, like the group defense comes first. Unity, criticism, unity comes second.
Yeah. All right. I hate to say this, guys, but I do have something I have to do after this. So we are one section short. I'm so sorry. I don't think we're going to make it to the end of this chapter today. But the answer that I had here was messaging, continuing to explain and expose the class nature of the conflict that is giving rise to fascism. Explain not only how women will benefit from the rejection of patriarchy, but men will benefit. Expose at every turn the ways in which fascists and their ideologues are not living what they preach. Action. Build spaces for people of all genders and LGBTQ identities to interact with each other. We see time and again that the fastest way to counteract fascist propaganda is through direct contact between the people and groups being pitted against each other. Continue to center voices of women and LGBTQ individuals in our struggle and support, and empower them to make contributions and take on leadership roles. Cis-het male individuals already engaged in the struggle have a special responsibility to take the lead in connecting with other cis-het male individuals to bring them into the struggle, but also to help them as they battle their own prejudices and experience of equality and egalitarianism as oppression. So basically, straight guys out there, we need to be taking the lead and talking to other straight guys. Don't put that on the minority groups. Okay. Again, I am so sorry we got so close into this, but I have something I have to do right now. So we will pick this up at the next reading group. This is the last section in this chapter. I think now that we have an idea of pacing, we'll try to get caught up next time, and we'll just try to keep up the pace as best we can. Does anyone have anything final that they want to add before we call it for today?
Jade, remind me later that we got to talk about what the revolution will look like.
You got it. I guess I just wanted to point out, Parenti mentioned that the U.S. capitalists were backing and supplying military industrial intelligence to Germany even after the U.S. joined the war. I've often pointed out and noticed that the United States in World War II often ended up acting as sort of like a double agent for the fascist side. After World War II, they just took all these people. And I guess we're probably going to talk about this in this next section, but just took all these people and from Germany and Italy and Japan, and kind of just integrated into the United States' own imperialist fascism.
Just cut my finger on a paperclip.
That it has going, and really, when you look at what happened in Italy with the fall of Mussolini, OSS agents were literally trying to get all of the fascists out and out of the harm's way from the communist partisans. And it was constantly the United States stepping in to protect the fascists as they were falling and not get these fascists out. So that's just something that I've noticed time and time again.
Yeah, Parenti doesn't go over it in this book, but we all in the United States get the sanitized version of U.S. history, but you start looking into it and you're like, were we ever not at least proto-fascist? It's really bad going back the last 400 years. Okay. Again, I am sorry for the abrupt end, but I have someone who's waiting on me, so I do have to get going. Thank you all very much. We hope you found this discussion enjoyable and beneficial, and we will see you at the next meeting.
Have a good night,
all
everyone.
Right, thank you.
Good night.
Jade, in addition to that, the German chancellor in the 70s, that was a former Hitler Youth instructor. I think that's what he was.
Yeah, I don't think I heard of that specifically, but yeah, I know that a large amount of the German government.
You're in those lower and middle levels for sure. They were just filled to the brim with them.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, good stuff. I'll give that to East Germany. They did a lot fucking better with their
for sure. All right.
I'll see you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into this video, and thanks to everyone that attended our reading group live. We hope you got something out of this. If you enjoyed this video and you want to attend a reading group live yourself, feel free to reach out to us via email at milwaukee@cpusa.org, DM us on any of our social media, or just come say hi to us at an event that we're at. See you in the next video covering the 6th and final section of Chapter 1, Friendly to Fascism.